the Venus Exchange. This is Laura talking right now. And, we have a guest on today, so we'll get into lots of juicy, different topics. She's an herbalist, a writer. She's going to talk a little bit about full spectrum wellness, just bringing a little bit of everything to the table. And so we're going to go around and introduce ourselves just to remind everybody who we are.
Nova, Fit Me Naturally, Temple and Aura, Nova in Your Aura. Hello. Welcome back.
Hey everyone, I'm Alicia Christine. And yeah, that's it. Just a reminder. There you go.
Hey everybody, it's Leslie at Good Girl Les.
Greetings, Tasia here.
And Jasmine, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
All right.
My name is Jasmine Burnett. My pronouns are she, her. I am so happy to be here. And just so happy to see all of these spaces that folks are creating to have important conversations with women in Cleveland. That's so important. So thank you. So as Laura said, I'm an herbalist. I am a writer. I do believe in full spectrum wellness, and we can get into that definitely from a pleasure-centered perspective, just because I think that pleasure, as I shared with you, it just, people interact with it as if it's something that's always physical. And when you think about pleasure as something that's visceral, it's spiritual, it's cellular. It's not connected to anything that's outside of you. It's all with what's inside. You know, you get your information from inside. So I really use that to inform all the work that I do. But what pays my bills is my coaching, which I also love a lot. So the coaching that I do really works with social justice leaders who are doing the range of work in this world to make sure people have abortion access, make sure people have, equitable access to the cannabis industry, ensuring that you have access to the full range of decisions around your life, your body, your family, and your reproduction. So, let's talk more about whatever it is that you want to know. I have a lot to share.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We want to go ahead and start with the icebreaker.
Okay.
Get up in your business first.
How many questions? Just one?
Let's do three. Let's break them up throughout the show.
Are you okay with three?
I'm fine.
Okay.
All right, we'll take question breaks.
Yeah, let's do question breaks. So we'll start with one.
This one is, what's your proudest accomplishment?
Let's see.
Ooh, my proudest accomplishment. Oh my goodness. My proudest accomplishment is all of the ways I've come back to myself when I've been lost.
Ooh.
That is the truth. It's so easy to get lost. The world can take you on so many different rides, and then people kind of drag you along with them, and you're not really sure you're being dragged until you've been dropped. And then when you're like, how am I going to pick myself back up again?
How did I get here?
How did I get here? Are you looking up from the ground like, wow, it looks so different from this perspective, So, it's really, and how you pick yourself up and the tools that you use to gather and collect yourself. I think that sometimes, we can drop into some really, not positive tools, tools that aren't in our highest light, but they get us through that day or that moment, and that's okay too, no judgment, right? But it's also nice to connect back to what's core and what's central. And so for me, even when that's been hard, even when I've been in my darkest nights, and we've all had those dark nights, I'm sure, gosh, isn't it amazing when you can come back to yourself,
So I got a question. So with you saying there was many ways you came back to yourself, is that where you found this idea of full spectrum wellness? Because you...
Do we want to kind of explain what full, let's define full spectrum wellness. And by let us, I mean her.
Absolutely. So my foundation is in womanism and in areas that, make space for women to step inside of our wellness. What is our intuition, knowledge that hasn't been placed on us, but knowledge that comes from within us. Mm-hmm. So that is where I tap in. And sometimes, I think to myself, when I find an outlet or I find access to a medicine, it's herbs, it's oils, it's breath work. It's sex sometimes, it's weed sometimes, it's a drink sometimes, it's herbs sometimes, it's a conversation, it's me just weeping with my friends and them laying their hands on me and praying over me and sending me positive light and energy. Mm-hmm. So, full spectrum wellness is you knowing what you need. Mm-hmm. Your journey, your healing journey, my healing journey is not like any of yours. Mm-hmm. We may have methods that are similar. Mm-hmm. But no one person knows the best way to heal. You know your way back to yourself. That is your work, and you have so much to offer. All of you are offering so many beautiful, powerful wellness gifts that people can tap into as they feel connected to you and your purpose and the things that you're doing. So I think that there is as much work to do in the world as there are people in the world, because we are all work. Right. So for me, that's what full spectrum wellness is. And also, in terms of like how I have made that professional in my work, I work in the reproductive justice movement, which is a movement founded by Black women. Mm-hmm. And in 1997, and with the human right to have a child, not have a child, and parent your child in safe and sustainable communities. So, so many times we're like, okay, you get shamed if you have a child. You get shamed if you don't have a child. And then when you have your child, you get shamed for the way that you parent, Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, all of that is incorrect. And we know better, mm-hmm. right? And so we know that we don't live one-dimensional lives, single-issue lives. We live on a spectrum of life, mm-hmm. And life is not linear. Life is very circular. It goes in a helix sometimes. It's really a labyrinth. You find your way back to yourself. You find your way back to people. And you do that in a variety of ways. And so I think what you all offer here, this space, and various things that I do are connected to full spectrum wellness. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Love it.
So I had a question. So I saw that on your Instagram it says Black feminist. Mm-hmm. So why do you identify as a feminist?
Yes. Oh my gosh, let me tell you. So in college, mm-hmm. I Higher Learning had just come out, right? Y'all know that movie Higher Learning? Mm-hmm. All right, great. So that movie just came out. yeah, Higher Learning. So, Higher Learning came out. I went to a historically white institution.
Not historically.
Called Purdue University
not expecting that.
in Indiana. And, I think that when you are in the 90s, there was a lot of consciousness coming through around race that, was really tenuous and really stressful. And so I remember my first week on campus, there was this flyer, and it was like a Black man with a noose on his neck hanging from a tree. And the Black folks used to hang out at this area called the tree. And it was just a tree with benches, around it. And it was like all the N-words meet us at the N-word bench at whatever time it was. And so all these Black people from everywhere were at the bench that Friday. Nothing happened. But I was like, wow. There was something that I didn't have to do or didn't have to step into when I was growing up in Indiana, because we were just all very integrated in my hometown. It's a small town and we were very close. But when I got to this broader environment, and folks were really racist mm-hmm. because we were less than 1% of the population, I was like, wow, what can speak to me politically, radically, that is deep in my femininity, that is deep in my inner knowing, that is deep in my Blackness, that is deep in my radicalness, that can help me understand and see myself clearly. Because I could not see myself in anything that most of my professors were saying. And I was like, wow, I know that there is more to me than what people are telling me. Mm-hmm. And so Black feminism helped me to clarify that for myself. And I think that it does a lot for different people and it doesn't do as much for others. And so, I'm not saying that it's everybody's winner, you know what I'm saying, but it's my winner. And it speaks to me. And the way that I spell it is kind of like, it's like, I like to, it's spelled BLKFEMINST. Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, there's complexity, I don't want the range of the actual spelling Black feminist, mm-hmm. Like, it gives me space to not be exactly that,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But to be like your own definition of it.
Yeah, it's all about self-definition.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that time on air I was like, that's me in a box, but don't put me in a box.
Yes.
Don't do that. But yeah, that's it.
Yes, for sure.
That's what's up.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, connecting this to the pleasure, because I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. When I said pleasure, I was like, yes, my boy's so good. But then you were like, oh, it could be this and it could be that. Okay, so what does the full spectrum in conjunction with the pleasure? Because clearly it ain't what I was thinking. So
I mean,
not all of what I was thinking. But let fill us in. This is when I want to scoop close.
Yeah, I think that I have been on a journey around pleasure for a long time. And I think that as children we become curious about our bodies, and we can't deny that. And we can't deny our children that. But I was raised by baby boomers, so I was kind of denied that. And so what that has meant for me is, like when I was younger, there was this show on HBO called Real Sex, Y'all.
Oh my God. I watched that show all the time when I was younger. I used to sneak and watch it all the time.
And have Nickelodeon on the last button.
Yes, absolutely.
Gotta quickly switch it.
Yeah. Okay. You already know. So yeah, Real Sex was lit, and it just was, I was like, wow, this happens in the world somewhere.
I'm telling that
I wanted to be at my house.
What we got to do? So yeah, and just so much education came from that. So I think that I got into my pleasure practice, unfortunately through my trauma, right? Like, I was like, ooh, I know this doesn't feel good, so how do I get back to what feels good? And so I remember the first conscious decision I made around pleasure was coming out and just telling my mom I was a lesbian at 19, which was very difficult. And, and now I've been out, like more than half my life. And it's like, I don't even know what life is not living this way. So, so that was my first conscious decision. And then, I moved into, just like, I don't know, just really exploring pleasure from a, like, where do I see my pleasure? Where do I find my pleasure? Does it come from people? Does it come from me? Like, where do I find it? So I just was really on a search. And I found this book called The Whole Lesbian Sex Book. It's a beautiful book. It's by this woman named Felice Newman. And she did this study of just like women and pleasure. And so it's from a lesbian's perspective, but it's absolutely for all women, And it's powerful in that I was like, wow, these are methods and these are ways that I can arrive at pleasure that are both mental, that are spiritual, that are physical, and, what's holding me up. And so then from that study and exploration, I started a page on Facebook in 2008 called Aunt Betty's Basement.
Betty's Basement.
Yeah, it was named.
I don't know what's going on now.
I want to drink.
We all got that cool aunt that's going to be with it at all times. You can take the boys over there, you can take the girls over there, you can smoke the weed over there. I never had an aunt like that, but I always wanted.
That's how you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, my friends had them, and I was like,
Well, then you could have hung out with your friends. Right?
Girl,
No.
I just got beat. I got beat enough on my own. I ain't need no help.
Yeah.
Not no help.
No help.
Yeah. Well, my Aunt Betty, I didn't get to kick it at her house like that. But she did have that space for other people. Mm-hmm. So from like the 1950s to the 1980s in Dayton, Ohio, she had an after-hour spot for black lesbians because back then they used to, like the police would come and break up the clubs. People couldn't party, so they had to like party in their homes. Mm-hmm. And so she did that. And then I was like, wow, like, I met her friends when she was passing away and stuff. And I was like, man, like, I want that. And so I was able to do it virtually. And then I became a naturist after that.
Nice.
Yeah, and that is really like core and critical of my like pleasure practice, because when are you ever just naked for you? Mm-hmm. And not when you're performing with your body for someone.
Mm-hmm. Do you mind explaining what that is for the people who are wondering? Yeah. A naturist.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I was like,
yeah. So it's basically being nude in nature, in community with people where there is no sex that is involved. It's just really like a personal journey and like a way of like living in your body in a different way where you're not always wearing clothes and that's defining how people interact with you, or people are just, and I think after a while, you're around all these people and they're like naked and you forget they're naked. Mm-hmm. So it's a powerful thing that I stepped into in 2012.
Wow, you answered my question. I said that in my head. I'm like, what year was that?
Yeah.
And you just said it. So I was curious. Okay.
Yeah. So where do you do that type of thing? Mm-hmm. Because I remember when we started talking about this, when you came for a massage one time, like you were telling me about it, and I was like, I would have never known this stuff even existed. Mm-hmm. Like, but I was like, that's so interesting. Like, that's something I would do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But like,
for sure.
You don't. Yeah. Like, people don't know.
Found
about
my life.
I was like, what is this?
Well, we laugh and talk about like where we see ourselves, like where are all these little steps leading, and it's like to Left Eye in the jungle naked with her homies. Like that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, fetching sea moss and swinging from trees. And nobody's gonna blink twice at a booty cheek. Like no. Period. So, do you want to tell us what's the difference, or if you even feel the need to describe the difference between a nudist and a naturist? Is there a thin line, a fine line? Because all of them until now, I was like, I'm a nudist. But maybe I'm supposed to be a naturist. I'm exploring.
Well, I think sometimes people use them interchangeably, and so I think, I don't want to say it's only this or it's only that. Okay. So I know that, people use them both. I think there's a Black Nudist Association or Black Naturist Association. So there are people who are organizing trips and things like that to get more involved in that community. And so, I mean, it's just basically being naked. Like, think about, just like sit with your body, for a minute. Mm-hmm. Okay. And think about all the times that you have ever felt safe in your body. What does that look like? Where were you? Who was around you? Were you with yourself?
By myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was by myself.
By yourself? By yourself?
Oh, shit.
Absolutely.
Can you hear me that really quick?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's, interesting when you say by yourself. Because really when you're in a naturist space, you are by yourself. Mm-hmm. You're not there for anyone but you. Mm-hmm. No one cares that you're naked. No one cares what your body looks like. We only care in that community and in the spaces that I've held about your heart and how you're healing. Mm-hmm. I did the retreat. My first retreat, I was living in Brooklyn, and we took a retreat in Maine. Mm-hmm. And so it was this like NASA scientist house. And he built like a sauna. He had an indoor pool. And then we had like woods. And so we were doing hot, cold nature. So we would like get really, really hot and then go out and do like snow angels in the snow naked. So
in the snow naked.
Yes. So like the body temperature, taking your body temperature really, really hot and then bringing it down is actually good for your pores. It's good for your heart.
Yeah.
So
I tried chirotherapy, right?
Yeah.
And it was an experience. Okay, let's just say that, because I thought I was able to go in there with the robe. And he was like, "Hand me the robe," and I'm like, "It's freezing." He was like, "You be in there for 60 seconds." I'm like, "It's freezing." Like, oh my gosh! And I was sitting there the whole time, but I always wanted to go back and try it to relax because I just was not relaxed. So
we should make it a date.
Yeah, honestly,
there's a $9 Groupon. You can come to my gym and do it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
That works.
Yes.
But after the experience, though, nonetheless, when it was all done, maybe 5 minutes after, I felt like I was on a cloud.
Yeah.
Like I felt really high for like a while,
Yeah.
and then I took a nice nap.
Yeah, see?
You probably woke up starved.
Thought out.
Yeah,
I don't
Yeah, I did. I went and stayed on a reservation when I was 18 for 2 weeks, and it was like tents and
A nudist
trailers.
reservation?
No, a Navajo reservation out in like the Four Corners area, and they do the hot huts where you the sweat lounges. So, and I did that, and I like fell in love with that. Like
What
to
is
this
that experience like for you?
it's kind of similar to this circle, and it's a sweat lodge. So it's like a little, like a dome, like an igloo, but they put blankets all over it, and they put hot coals in the inside, and it's literally hot. You're already in Arizona. You're already in the desert. And you do it naked. If you're menstruating, you mark your head with like red clay or red something. But if not, you just go in and you're naked, and you do meditation and breathing, and it's just a part of their...
Are you naked with other people?
Yeah, they're all naked. The men, the women, and so men and women do it together. And then of course they have different ceremonies for different things where of course we don't intermingle or anything like that. But yeah, you're just in there, and I was like, I fell in love with it, and that's like to this day, whenever we travel, and that's what I was thinking about, because when I ran into a group of people who enjoyed being nude. I don't want to label them, but we were in Carousel or maybe Bonaire, and they like took us on their, well, not me, they took my friends on their boat and took them to way out to different parts of stretches of beach to like the tourists, because we were on a cruise, and we poured it, and places where they wouldn't know, and they were like, yeah, like this is what we do, boat, and they're just all naked and they're like chilling. They were telling us about it. We like, why did you leave us? Taking us. And but the joke is I would have never found them, because I'm always like in the sand, like sleep on the beach, like I just love the heat, and it stems back to that first experience of just like being in that heat and just feeling so good. But I did the cry roll, and I loved it, and I was like, I would totally do this more often, but
I didn't like it.
just finding the time.
My nipples got like harder than I thought they could ever. Like, it's about to explode. I'm like,
I would probably do it again just because it's good for you. But
You don't need those things.
okay, so about the naturist. So I know you said like when you are in those moments, you're still by yourself because you're in nature. But the first time doing it, what was that experience like? Did it take time for you?
Oh, such a funny story. So I missed my flight to, with the full group. And so I had to fly by myself, and then I got a car service to take me. And so it was this amazing Somalian man. We had so much great conversation. The ride was maybe 45 minutes from the airport to the house. And so we pull up to the house, and he's like, okay, we're here. And I'm like, yes, okay. And then all these people come out the house naked, like, welcome. And he was like, oh my God, I'm like, naked.
Like, who is
What is going on? Did you know them? Any of the people
Yes.
there?
Oh,
okay.
definitely.
They're just so welcoming. Bring it in.
Yes. So that was my first time ever going on a naturist trip. So yeah, but I think that naturism is communal and beautiful too, because even like in the sweat lodges, this is not new. I think sometimes folks try to package it back to us like things that are natural to us, and things that are sacred to us. They try to package our sacredness and give it back to us, which is foul. But
don't do that.
Don't do that. But as I think about our Asian brothers and sisters right now, they have beautiful traditions of community bathing. So they don't have bathhouses here, but they have like Asian and mainly Korean bathhouses. They have some in Chicago. It's called King Spa. They have one in Atlanta, not far from Atlanta, called Jeju. And so some of these spas you can stay at overnight. They have like restaurants inside. You lay out on a pallet. They have a range of services that you can get. So like acupressure, massage. You can get a full scrub down like within inches of your life. I'm talking about you're going to have that. And you're going to be like, I'm clean. She's going to be like, no, you're not clean. You're not clean. Rolls of dirt. But it's so refreshing and it feels so good. But we don't have anything like that in Ohio, unfortunately. And I'm just hoping that one day we do. But it's amazing.
I'm just thinking of like I'm still stuck on the part where she was like, "You'll be like, no, I'm good." She's like, "We still going, baby."
Yeah, she would get all of the dead skin. Okay, and you can do a yoni steam there too. That's where I first got exposed to yoni steams, was at the Korean spa. So I think we have a lot to learn from other people of color in their bathing traditions, and what they gift to us in this country from their countries and their traditions.
I want to get you hit to something, because in North Olmsted there is a bath spa. So I went with one of my good friends, and this was our first time experiencing each other naked. And like they scrubbed us down and like gave us a massage. We was there for like 2 hours, and they served us tea and fruit and stuff like that. But it's in North Olmsted. It's called Al Amara Spa, and it's Turkish.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so it's like it's their tradition or the way they do it. Yeah. So they use like all this clay and mud and stuff like that. But so if y'all are interested, I was thinking maybe one day we should all do it.
That's what I was thinking. We got to do a group activity, another one.
So there was a Russian one in on the east side over here, but they just closed it down. But like I think only like Russians could go there. But I remember I actually went in there because someone like bought the building from them. But they still had everything set up in the back because no one like redid that part yet. And I went in there for something to do with massage, just to talk to this lady, and she was showing me around. And they had pictures all covering this wall, and they're just like, and it was like a men's bathhouse. So like they would all just be naked, like all the men just chilling, like they would eat food, they'd go in these like salt cave that they made and like sit in the, and that was like a traditional Russian thing to do, and they were like
that's beautiful. Yeah, because it was this this Russian woman who was at the gym, and she was the only person naked in the sauna, and
people are like, what are you
doing? People were like, and I'm just like, oh, okay, but I didn't know, but she was like, I don't know why no one else is naked. So she was like, I'm getting out of here. She got upset. But
she's like, y'all are not doing this right. This is a disgrace.
I'm like, that's always me too. Like I sweat. So when I'm at the gym, I'm like, and people are like, there's rooms over there. And I'm like, look, you got it. I got it. I'm not walking over there. And I'm claustrophobic. So
see, I think that's something to talk about, because like, most people find themselves like on this journey, and like the idea or what people are trying to get back to is like their natural self, and usually that looks like just nothing. You're nude, and oftentimes, and I'm also just really speaking for myself, that there's really not too much of comfortability, and then you start to notice how uncomfortable you can be in your skin and in your nude when there are other people around, and usually you filter out those feelings when sex is involved because there's an action, right? Like sometimes if you have to sit there and be naked and maybe breathe or something, it's like, how do you rid yourself of the anxiety, of the discomfort, of the insecurities, so yeah, because that was because when I was there naked with my friend, I kept thinking like, is my friend looking at me, but like more so examining like who I am, because once when all of it's gone, like the style, the clothes, everything, it's just me, and this is who I am, and it's just it's just so vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I was curious about how was like your first experience, and then how do you like find yourself? Yeah, how do you come back to loving who you are and being comfortable with who you are bare? Like,
yeah.
And to add one piece of that, how do you kind of help newbies get to that? Like when you take the retreats and then it's one person who's it's their first time, like what are like some words to get them excuse me, comfortable like that?
Oh, I love these questions. Okay, so I think my first time, I was searching. I had just had my first surgery on my womb, and I had 10 fibroids removed. I had a really traumatic healing experience. I was in a really abusive relationship at the time, and I had just moved to Brooklyn. And so it was just so much was coming at me at the same time. Mental health challenges at that time too, because of course that's what happens when you're like in crisis.
yeah.
And so I was in crisis, and inside of that crisis, I spoke with a sister friend who was just like, you know what, I don't know if this would be helpful for you. But for me, I felt very disconnected from my body because my body had never been operated on, right?
Oof, yeah.
So I was like, wow, my body kind of feels like Frankenstein's bride right now. You know what I mean? So having that experience where, I felt very disassociated from my body, I was like, how do I drop back in here? Because I know that being disassociated from my body is what caused me to be in that abusive relationship. It's what kind of led to a whole flurry of things that I was just in my season of, and so and so coming back to myself was possible through naturism, because I was like, okay, we talk about confrontation. I had to confront myself. I had to say what made those fibroids possible. Was the same thing that made that relationship possible. Was the same thing that made my mental breakdown so real and present, And so when we think about all of the things that fall in patterns in our life, when we're not in alignment, sometimes we don't know why, and we just surrender to it, and then other times we're like, hold up, nope. So that's really, I was in a process, and that's what I needed. Naturism is what I needed, and I discovered that. And I think that how I would help someone come into the naturist space is what I do every week, which is, I've had naturist spaces at conferences. So there was a conference called Sex Down South, where I held a workshop, and then there's another conference called Let's Talk About Sex, both held in the South. But there are spaces for folks to explore and talk about like everything from policy to pleasure around sex and reproduction and gender. And so those were really beautiful spaces where like I set it up so that people, when they came in, I greeted everyone with a flower. I had refreshments on the table, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, vegan, everything in between. And, the first step for me is just showing them my vulnerability. So I'm always the first one to get out of my clothes, and just model that with them and for them. But what I've been able to do during the pandemic, I started these last April, which is weekly bathhouses every Wednesday. So I do virtual community bathhouses where people from my friends from all across the country, we get together on Zoom, and we show up in our vulnerability, and we show up in our deep vulnerability because we know that water is medicine. We know that water can handle it, because there's a lot that we've not been able to deal with very well. It's been a lot of heavy shit happening over the last few years. So we can't make sense of it all the time, and so water is that it gives you, it holds you when you're feeling heavy, no matter how you feel about your body. Water is like, boo, I got you, you light. You know what I'm saying? So water is so loving and so hard, so soft, but it's also so powerful in that it can like carve valleys and like make shapes in the earth, you know? So you have this powerful element and these powerful conversations every week, and they've been wonderful. And then I have had some pleasure elements inside of my practice around naturism. So last year I did an event called Meditate, Medicate, Masturbate. And
I like M's.
Triple M. Triple M. So, yeah, it was an event that I was really inspired by from Real Sex. And because they have National Masturbation Month in May, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
It's coming up, girl.
Just in time.
You say
You
May
have
is
not-
National Masturbation Month.
Do I need to order anything?
Any suggestions?
Stay ready.
You don't gotta get ready.
You know, I mean, yeah. So I saw this Real Sex episode, and it was like all white folks, you know, and I was like, man, and they had this masturbate-a-thon, and I was like, yes. I need to see bodies of color doing this, okay? We need this. And so, because, gosh, like, oh, that feels so good. And so then I was able to, like, kind of invite folks and say, hey, you know, is this something you'd be down with? You know, it's going to be super safe. These are the ways that I'm going to make it safe. And so, yeah, those people who said they were interested, I sent them a survey. From the survey, I said, okay, you know, we need to have a 2-hour kind of check-in. Make sure your intentions are grounded in, you know, what serves you. And then from there, we met the day of, just so I could kind of check in to see where their headspace was on that day. And then, you know, put out an email that was like kind of here's all of the people you're going to be with, you know, so it was kind of like what you put on a dating profile. It was cute. And then, you know, and we meditated, we medicated, and we masturbated. So I just took us through a guided meditation. And what was fascinating about that space is, you know, you think that, you know, the first place you're going to go is, of course, your genitals. But no, like that's when you're doing performative sex. You know, when you're doing pleasure that is just for you, you know, you pay attention to the things that you don't typically pay attention to or want anyone else to pay attention to. And for that particular group of people, it was their stomachs. And when you think about how much you hold in your belly and, you know, sacral, solar energy in your belly and everything that's connected to passion and purpose right there, and the ways that you allow someone else inside of your body to control those desires, those cravings that you really need to gift to yourself, it really kind of changes how you become intimate with yourself. You know, and it helped me to not be afraid, you know. So I think being able to facilitate a space like that for folks felt very powerful. It felt very loving, very supportive, and everyone loved it. It was great.
All right, so real quick, the Medicaid part.
Let's
Talk about it.
We be here last. Let's talk about the Medicaid part. So I'm not a smoker. I don't even do hookah anymore. I have recently discovered hemp oil, CBD oil, and it's cool. You know, like it's cool. I was diagnosed with anxiety during whatever this was, 2020. In which I've always felt like I had it since I took Psych 101 in like 2006. But I was just kind of like, I'm black, I can't have shit. Like, I'm already black, I'm loud. That's enough. I don't need no extra labels. But I always knew, you know, like the feelings of it. And I just grew to adjust accordingly. And now that I'm stretched so thin professionally and just emotionally with family and friends and all of that, it's like I don't got time to be sweating in no corner trying to breathe it out. I'm like, oil me up. Let me free. So I found a lot of freedom in that. But because I come from a family of abusers, I've always been I was very late to start drinking, maybe about 22, 23. And I've always been like anti-drug. Like weed is the gateway drug. So I'm like, I can't get on weed because if I get on weed, I'm going to get on other stuff. And then before you know it, I'm going to be on the corner.
Just that one
weed. That one. I didn't even pop up. Just one. But that's always been my psychological energy towards it. So now that I'm like naked and more comfortable with me and healing from my past and working on my root chakra, I'm like, Genova, it's okay to hip it up. Like, you know, like, and really go back to nature for the healing and not those societal pressures that people tell you, oh, just have a drink. You know what I mean? So, tell us a little bit about the medicate part. Because I think there's a lot of stigma.
Oh, sure.
And then there's a lot of hype around just the legalization of weed, the abusers, you know, the needers, the users. So can you talk about that a little bit and just...
Yeah, well, first of all, you know, I have been around cannabis my entire life, so I don't have any stigma like about it. I actually wrote an article about my mom who passed away 3 years ago, but it's called "Smoke Your Weed, Baby: Memories of My Mother's Truth or Dare." It's on theroot.com. And I wrote it because I think that there's like, first of all, cannabis is an ancient medicine that, you know, people have made evil because they put money to it. They've made it an opportunity to make criminalize people, you know. And honestly, you know, like every other herb, in my opinion, you know, cannabis is just a very, I call her very social. You know, she's like, you know, the more attention you give her, the more that she's going to be like, yes, that's so too. That's so too. You want a hug? And so when I think about cannabis, I think of her as like the homegirl's homegirl. That's who cannabis is for me. Now, I know that, of course, you know, based on how we're raised, based on, you know, like whatever we've been taught in our lives and whatever has been demonstrated to us in our lives from our families, it can be really scary to think about anything alternative going into our bodies, you know. So, and I understand people who feel that way as well. But I also know that no one should go to jail for a plant. No one should go to jail for a plant that grows from this earth.
Most definitely.
That is here to give you medicine. Now, the frequency upon which people use it, I know in places where it's being regulated, like for instance, I have friends who are doing cannabis regulation in Michigan and New Jersey, and they're looking at, you know, what happens, like, you know, like with alcohol regulations. If you drink too much, you know, you do the breathalyzer, and it's like, okay, you know, you drank too much, now it's time for you to like go sit down or go to jail. So, you know,
Go sit down or go to jail.
you know what I'm saying? So I think that she's looking at what does that look like. So when you're talking about pace and boundaries with cannabis, and I understand that's where you're coming from, you know, there are people who are actually looking at that, who are legalizing it. So people aren't, when you think about the folks of color who are out here legalizing it and doing equity work, it's not reckless because they're not just in it for how much money can I make. Now there are people who are, and who want you to smoke all of the weed. You know, all of the time. All of the time. But also, if that's what you choose to do, I feel like if you're a functioning human being and you do what you do, I really think it's about agency. So if it's not for you, you know, it doesn't have to mean that it's not for someone else.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's the same way that I feel about abortion access. It's like, you may not believe in abortion. That is your right. I fucks with you. And you know who else I fucks with? The person who needs one.
Exactly.
You know? So I'm just saying, like, you know, what would the world look like if we just let people do what they wanted to do without harming other people and just stay out there? Because we're just saying.
I feel that though, for
Mind your business. But yeah, but I've written a lot. I've connected with folks. Like there's a amazing Black woman, Wanda James, in Colorado, in Denver, who is one of the first Black women to open a dispensary. She talks a lot about.
The dispensaries in Colorado are trippy. They look like gas stations. So you pull up and you thinking you're, yeah, it's gas, all right. I pull up thinking I'm getting some gas, and like none of the pumps work, and it's like. It was so trippy, and I was like the last to know. And they're like, no,
I can imagine that too.
When I got there, I was like, why are there so many gas stations here?
Hers is like kind of a walk up. I didn't see too many. Well, maybe that, I don't know where
I was in the Springs.
Okay.
I'm not in Denver.
Yeah.
So. But I was like, this is trippy. It blew my mind, and everyone always was like, whenever I would say like, oh yeah, I'm flying from Colorado. Oh yeah, you got that stuff, and it's like I don't.
Actually, no.
Wrong girl. It's the wrong girl.
Yeah.
Well, what are some of your favorite ways to use cannabis?
I love tinctures. I think tinctures are great, and I also love topicals. Topicals, you know, I think that's always for folks who are not comfortable with the smoking element and what that looks like or what that might smell like. Exactly. See, there's some cannabis for you. You know, I think that I've had a lot of inflammation issues in my body, and that has really been so supportive to my healing. And yeah, so I love topicals, and if you know, and I do enjoy smoking, but you know, lung capacity is a thing. And
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that.
So you know, you just have to be about like, how are you using things in a way that is around self-preservation, and just being balanced and paced. You know what I mean? You know, you got to find what works for you and why it works for you. And so you've got to understand, you know, when you drink something, when you eat something, why am I doing this? Why am I drinking this? Yeah.
Mindful marijuana.
I mean,
marijuana.
but also for the person who doesn't, I'm like, no judgment, friend. You'll get there.
Yeah.
You will find your way back.
Yes, exactly. So,
I know for me, like with my relationship with Mary Jane, it was like if I use all of these other herbs for like tonics, tinctures, and stuff like that, but this is the only one I'm smoking, and like even though like I would love the way I would feel, I was still getting negative effects because I'm still like doing things to my body. Well, my lungs, and I could feel that, and it was changing like the way I move, the way I exercise. And you know, when you are high, it's like you kind of, for me, I kind of psych myself out a little bit. I'm like, yeah, this got me doing 20 jumping jacks, but then I'm like, what's going on? I can't, you know, get a full breath in anymore. So I kind of let it go for a long time, and then I found myself back making tinctures with it, and I realized like that's a way like I really love to do it as well. But
I want you all to look up someone. Her name is the Dank Duchess.
the dank,
I've heard of her.
She's amazing. She is amazing. Now, she is a person, and she is a delightful human being that I have had the pleasure of meeting. And she is like, she manages, she does hemp, she does hash, she grows cannabis, and she like is in like this deep production of cannabis, wellness, and psilocybin, which are magic mushrooms. She's based in Oakland, California, and she has these chillums, these like thick, beautifully rolled smokes that she bedazzles and makes really beautiful. But yeah, I think that, you know, she also talks about what you were saying, which is, you know, she works out after she smokes, and she's very active. I mean, I've been in physical space with her. I was at a retreat, a cannabis and yoga retreat a couple of years ago in Palm Springs, and she was there, and you know, people were, you know, medicating and being active. And so I just think that, you know, it's based on an individual's body. You know your body, I know my body, and, you know, we want to trust each other to know what's best for our own bodies, right?
So I like off of that. I like to always say I like to like get elevated. I don't like to get high because I feel like it's a big difference.
Because when you're high and stoned, you're so stagnant,
and you're just lost in the substance. It's not like you're taking control of the experience.
For sure.
I feel like that's how some people feel about microdosing with like shrooms and stuff.
I like microdosing. I don't do it all the time, but like everyone has really said, it's just all about the individual level, because for me, I've done a full trip of shrooms, and it's not that it was a bad or negative experience, but it's very intense. And to have to still function within society while you're feeling like that is not something I would be able to do and be happy with the results. But like sprinkling a little bit in my tea.
No, not recommended.
And y'all got me over here like,
So did you microdose for
I'm not doing that
like
shit.
you didn't do it like a, so I scheduled like microdosed like mushrooms for 3 months. So there's like a thing you follow, like specifically like weighed it out, like every 3 days, took the exact same amount like in a pill, like for 3 months straight.
Really?
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I've never experienced it that way.
You just ate a little bit?
Well, no.
I've heard people do that too.
I only do it when I feel like I'm in like the middle of a transition. So
Okay.
like when I'm between phases or chapters,
Get your
and then
superpowers.
it's literally like it just gives you that extra boost into that next phase. And so I'll take it and I'll usually like journal. I always send my son to his grandmother's house. You know, I have the house to myself for a night. I never do it with other people. And then I just take it and just let what happens. Let what releases release, and what I hold on to, I'll keep it and move on.
So I probably did like way less than you, because I was doing like I would take it in the morning and like go through my day.
I've taken it a couple
Like
times
every
like
3
that,
days.
but I don't know. I just feel like it boosts your mood. Like when I take
that's
shrooms,
how I
I
felt.
want to have. I don't maybe want to get too deep into it to where I'm on a trip for 8 to 10 hours, but I do want to have a little bit of an intense experience.
Sometimes that's nice though too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to do that.
She's like, did y'all watch You?
Yes.
Season 2?
Yes.
He tripped because of the brother spiked him.
Oh my goodness, that was not funny. He was doing too much stuff. At the end, towards the end, right?
Bruh, I was
didn't
like,
get there.
see, I ain't never.
But was that? Did they do shrooms? I don't think it was shrooms.
Did he give him shrooms? I thought he gave him shrooms.
I think it was something else.
Yeah, I mean,
I think they were doing like
just remember
cocaine
the
and all types of stuff. I think it was. Yeah, I don't think it was.
Well, I don't know. I think that, you know, both shrooms and cannabis come from the earth.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, again, balance and pace and knowing your body. And someone had to take those first doses of shrooms to understand what was poisonous, what had what impact. So I want to just give thanks for those people who did that. Who did that Gratitude. Absolutely. And now we know through their example what to do.
Example. Question. When you are doing your naturist, do you forage for shrooms? Is that a thing for real? Because I always see people like, I follow the coolest
Black foragers.
coolest little souls ever,
and stuff.
and they always are like spotting mushrooms, and I don't know the difference between like something you throw on the salad and something that's like some stuff. So I always wonder, is that like
Yeah, no,
thing?
I don't forage for magic mushrooms or psilocybin. No, that might be a little dangerous, and also it's illegal here.
you're learning? No,
You're learning.
But through my herbalism work and studies and just learning, I do love to forage and leave the mushrooms where they are. Because, you know, I think...
catch and release.
Yeah, because I think with wildcrafting, people are extreme.
Yes.
Just like with anything, you know, you find a thing that you could put in your farm-to-table restaurant, and now you've made money on, like, wild harvesting all of this medicine that is essential to the environment that it's in. And now what have you done to that environment? And I think that that's something that, you know, I think that, yes, herbs are, they're comical. Like, I tell you, my source light herb is calendula, and my shadow herb is hibiscus. Now, they teach me very different things. but it's not cannabis, right? So, you know, it's like kind of in the spectrum of, you know, like herbs have personalities.
Yes.
You know, they start talking and you're like, wow, I didn't know you had that in you. So, I mean, I think that, yeah, you know, you definitely, I think herbalism does help me to connect more to nature. And I do want to wild harvest naked. Absolutely. You know?
Legally. Not here. Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, no, not that either.
Okay. Oh, she with it.
I mean, you must want to come.
Right.
I know. I mean, I'm a firm believer in that learning, relearning, and unlearning, right? So I'm like in the process, I'm still slowly unfolding all of the things that I taught myself or like let society put on me over my first 30x years of life. And so now I'm open to relearning things from another standpoint. Like I was saging before I got here, like, throw chakra, don't trip. Keep my mind open, keep an open mind, because I know that a lot of things, you know, you just go so long thinking in these straight lines. And you know, like you said, you get to a point in life where you're like, nah, this is all one big S-curve or something, you know. And it's like, so now I'm like open to the S-curve, and I'm like with everything, like not necessarily to the point where I'm comfortable enough to just fall into the shrooms, but I'm very open-minded to not be like, because the old me was like in college I was literally like, oh, y'all drink, I'm not hanging with y'all, don't call me, don't knock on my door. Like I was intense, I was, and like it was still to like smoking, like don't smoke in my car, don't smoke in my house, don't you know, like that was always how I was. And so now just being okay with whatever somebody, you know, whatever you find your thing, and just understanding that, and just being open to the understanding, and just the curiosity of really wanting, as I learn more about herbs and you know, just people smoking herbs, not cannabis, but just literally like people smoking herbs, and I'm like, oh, y'all really just be like rolling up lavender. Okay, cool. You know, and I didn't know that was like a thing. So just letting that little fortune cookie keep unfolding for me. So yeah, I'm with it. I'm with everything. But I've always saw those mushrooms, and I've always wanted to like pick them up, and I'm so glad I told you that. You tell me like, I feel like my 3-year-old right now, like, don't touch that, Jasmine. Don't do that. But I never thought of it like that. I see something, I'm like, pick it.
Yeah. Consumption is something.
Yeah.
You know, we see something, we want it. And that's how we're brought up and brought into the world, you know. And it's nobody's fault.
I blame Columbus.
I mean, Columbus is a lot. He has a lot.
Columbus, Ohio?
No.
I'm like, what about Columbus?
But let's talk about Ohio. Let's talk about the Midwest, you know. Like, this is a conversation that would be totally, like, normal, like, that I've had regularly on the coast. You know, I've lived in California, I've lived in New York, and I've not lived in the South. I have lived abroad. And I think that and I'm from a small town in Indiana, and now I live in Cleveland. And so, you know, I think that, you know, I've been to Amsterdam. You know, I know what is possible around sex work. I know what is possible around cannabis or shroom. I know what's possible in states that are next door neighbors to us, like Michigan, you know, and Illinois. And it is a region that is like largely overlooked. I think that, you know, because I hadn't lived home, you know, in the Midwest for so long, people didn't even think I was from here. And they were like, oh, you're from Brooklyn, because that's what I identify you with. And I'm like, no. And that's why I love what you all are doing, because I think that the world sees the Midwest through the lens of the, you know, like the white redneck image. You know, they don't see us.
Cornfields and closed mines.
Literally.
Yes.
Cornfields and
closed
closed
mines.
Yes. I like that.
Yes.
What it is.
I might need to go on the state flag.
I think it does. I think that's the move right there.
Another t-shirt.
Are you gonna print
Another t-shirt? Get our t-shirt brand off
Y'all
the
do.
ground.
I'm sure y'all come up with all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Gotta start writing them down.
We gotta start, because I
Write
can't
them
remember the
down.
one from last
Please,
week.
y'all.
What
Please
was
write
it?
them down.
I'm gonna write
Yes,
that right
start writing down. But like, how do you keep it juicy in the hotbed of racism?
Ooh.
here.
But seriously,
In sister circles.
yes, in sister circles, like what do we create from the conditions that we're in that don't serve us? You know, you're creating visibility in a platform. That's so important. You know, you're creating these wellness alternatives and opportunities that our people are like, ooh, who's the representative? You know, before I get into this.
Oh yeah, that's very real because I organized a protest last year, around the beginning of last year, and I was so surprised to see how many people were like reaching out, like, who is organizing it? Are you a black person? Like this and the third. And I was like, it was my first ever, you know, throwing myself into that space. But I mean, it turned out really well. But I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It slaps a question.
Yeah. Like when I first moved here, one of the first questions that people asked me was, what high school did I go to? And I was like, why does that matter? I didn't go to high school here. You know, and I think that...
They want to know where you from so that they can see what type of person you are.
Okay.
So that they can see, like, if you say shaker, then they're like, okay.
She's this,
Middle
this,
class,
that.
maybe a little uppity. If you say Solon, it's like, oh, y'all had some money. If you say St. Clair or Shaw or East Cleveland, like, oh, you hood. You know, like they trying to use things
gauge
to...
your background.
Hey,
to
really
label.
fast, we have a question for you from one of our viewers.
Sure.
So she, Angel, right? Hopefully I'm saying that right. She wants to know, how do you start to identify or find things that bring you pleasure?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Just like, look at what you're inspired by. Go outside. Take a walk around a lake. We have Lake Erie right here. Or find your body of water, you know. And then, like, really listen to insight for information. So, like, I love going and putting my feet in cold water and just, like, letting the water come rush up and pull things away. And so there is a spiritual practice, you know, and there's a discipline that comes along. Like, you can't just say, pleasure, come to me now. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how it arrives to you. And sometimes you need to learn through other people. You know, some people lead you right there, and, you know, that's great. That's lit sometimes. But... you know, when you're on that journey for yourself, like, write yourself letters. I write to myself a lot. I think this last year, I read my journals from my last 10 years, which was deep.
Oh my God. Isn't it so cringy? Who is this woman? I don't know her. I hate going back.
But it's also a lot of wisdom. You have a lot of wisdom. You gave yourself a lot of wisdom that got you through, too.
Sometimes it's so hard to read. It's like I literally like choke up reading it. I be like,
But look at where you are now.
Yeah, like,
you know what I'm saying?
Sometimes
Like,
you forget where you were.
Yeah.
you're like,
oh,
wow,
this is so
I
much
did.
better.
I'm so strong.
Like,
Like, I
wow.
made it so
I was
far.
like, what was I going through? What was wrong with me? I look at the old me like, what was you on, sis? Like, you
Just
was
growing.
tripping.
Yeah.
Wait, I have a question. So, have anyone ever wrote a letter to themselves with their non-dominant hand?
I remember you telling me about that. I still have not done
Yeah,
that.
because, like, the idea is that that's your child self speaking to you. And since it's your non-dominant hand, it would look like the handwriting of your younger self. And then you start, like, addressing yourself, like, dear, you know, how you identify yourself. And then these, well, from my experience, like, these thoughts just kept coming out that I didn't realize I buried or hindered when I was that little girl. And then all these things start coming up. I'm like, dang, I feel like this. And then it was just digging into that deeper part. But I was just curious if anyone ever
I'm going to try that for sure. I love writing.
I think my inner child work breakthrough really happened winter solstice. This year or last year, I had just healed just enough from my surgery, and I drove to Sugar Creek. I rented myself a cabin in Amish country, and I just stayed there, and I just workshopped myself.
all by yourself.
All by myself.
See, I've been craving to go to the getaway house all by
Yes,
myself.
yes.
I've really been craving to do that. And I wanted to do it for my birthday this past time, and I'm just like, I should just do it, but
Yeah.
I really need to just do it.
Because when I read the journals, really every question that I needed to ask myself, I found in one of my old journals. I tell you. And then it took me, going away from and being away from my like family environment and just being like, okay, it's Jasmine for Jasmine. Let's do this, and it really brought a lot of clarity for me. So yeah, I mean, we're always just do the work on yourself. And don't be afraid. I mean, it's kind of a scary thing too, like being like, "Oh, I'm gonna be by myself," and
That sounds amazing.
But it wasn't.
It sounds amazing when you reach.
We were talking about. We brought up the word like ambivert last week, and I was telling them that like I love being with people. Like I'm a people person. Like when people are like, "I don't like people," I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" Like, I love people, but I love doing stuff by myself too, like planning stuff for myself, shopping by myself, eating by myself. Like it's like a whole soiree when I do stuff by myself, just as extravagant as it is when I do it with other people. And during quarantine, my son went to stay with his dad for about a month. And in that month, I would have like days where I would only really leave the room to like get food or like go to the restroom. And in there, I'm like drafting logos, business concepts, like everything, just from being not stuck in that space, because I went out a lot. I actually did go out a lot. I wasn't running. I was at the creek. I was out there in the streets. Well, I mean, wasn't nobody else out there though, so it was the perfect place to be, because it was still like a ghost town where we were. But through that, like, I ain't gonna say like isolation, but just through that discipline of sitting with myself, I was able to just birth so many things. So I think sometimes a big part of that was like finding pleasure to kind of was it Angel? Did she say her name?
Angel.
So I don't know that I've found like pleasure, but I surely think I'm very jolly. And part of what has helped me become jolly or find things that I'm pleased with, find circles that I'm pleased with, that I feel safe with, and new friends and new connections, was really writing down everything that I loved about my life at that moment. And for as many things that I had going on, I really didn't love most of those things. So it was like when I really got down to the nitty gritty of it, I really liked like 6 people and like really nothing about my life. You know, I didn't like where I lived. I didn't like, just so many things. So when I looked at that list versus my manifestations list of things I wanted, the type of house I wanted, the type of places I wanted to go, the type of friends I wanted to have, the type of experiences I wanted to experience with other people, that's how I shifted into walking in this path of being connected with more people. We talked about that on another episode. Like when you fall more into alignment, the universe just kind of keeps having its way for you. It just gives you everything you want. So sometimes I think we think so much about the rat race that is success, or the rat race that is
right into
happiness and things like that, and in the form of going out and looking for it, and not just saying like, hey, this is me, this is what I do, and I'm happy as fuck doing it. And I'm happy at the couple people I got on my team that's supporting me, or that support me, or that believe in me. Like I think that that's a form of like self happiness or pleasure, and that I think that finding that kind of makes experiencing pleasure with other people, because I don't think that I could really enjoy other people as much if I wasn't as
if you didn't
happy
enjoy
with
yourself.
me. If I didn't enjoy me, if I didn't enjoy my company, how good am I going to enjoy your company? You know what I mean? I think that when people don't enjoy their own company, that's when they find problems with your company.
Yes.
People, everyone's different, but nothing bothers me about people, because honestly, I don't let anything bother me about myself. And I'll address something, I'll check it, and then I'm gonna grow and glow from there. But I'm not gonna, like I used to do, people, condemn people and judge people. Oh, you little weed head, you ain't hanging with me. You know what I mean? And like once I just became more happy with me, that's when like I said, I don't know that that's really like pleasure, but certainly assessing where you are and comparing that list to where you want to be, and then bridging that gap of how do I get over here, because this side of the paper ain't it.
So just going off of what you said and all the energy that you're putting into it, 3 things that come to my mind for how I reached a point of like self-awareness and self-loving and really being willing to take up space, not being like hesitant about it. Accountability, I feel like, is major. And then one day I was in a hot yoga class, and the instructor was talking about the art of detachment. And for me growing up, I'm like so sensitive, like I can't even, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm like, I think there's strength in being vulnerable. There's strength in being able to love after you've been hurt, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So she's just like, you have to detach from being personally, you know, attacked or feeling personally identified or relating to what everyone else is doing, because at the end of the day, everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah, nothing is
and you
about
know,
you.
and nothing is about you. Mm-hmm. So through like accountability, detachment, and then the illusion of time is an illusion. We're all here going through things at different times, having different experiences. Essentially, overall, it's really the same journey. You know what I'm saying? We just might have a little bit, you know, twists and turns in our story, but being comfortable and going through all of that, people think that there was something you said that made me think of like the seasons of things, because you may want everything to happen like right then and there, but you do have to accept that, like, okay, I'm in a season of solitude. It's not even, it wouldn't even be healthy for me to exchange with other people in this season. And I feel like that kind of led me into even being here today, because I'm gonna be vulnerable with y'all just a little bit. But like growing up, I never felt like I belonged in anything. So I put, like, when I turned 18, I put myself in therapy, like doing all this stuff to kind of identify. It feels crazy even like voicing it, but doing all this stuff to just identify like who is Tasia without being affected and without having like the weight and anger of everybody else like placed on them. And then like with my parents, I didn't have a relationship. So it was like a lot of stuff that I was like, who am I? What am I doing here? You know? And then so just going through that and having to be by myself for a long time, and now finally, now that I am emerging into the world and just being like accepted like in all facets, is like, I'm so happy I did that work. Like, I'm so happy I spent all that time by myself figuring it out. But I just think like finding what works for you and going back to what did bring you happiness as a kid. And like you said, comparing things like, where am I? Where do I want to be? How am I going to bridge the gap? I think all of that is just so essential.
And if I can, you know, jump into the conversation, that's why I like to highlight, you know, the Square of Health, which was the start of my journey, because I had to look at what made me happy on a physical plane, the emotional, mental, and spiritual, you know. So in order to reach that, you know, that happiness, you have to have self-awareness of how things are, you know, impacting your life, your everyday life, your feelings, how you feel with someone versus how you feel without them, how you feel when you're eating this, you know, when you're not eating this. So it's just, like you said, accountability. And I also wanted to add self-awareness. And those are, you know, some of the things that are helping me, because I'm not going to say I'm at my that you know, end all be all, but I know that I'm on my way there because I became aware and because I became accountable of what I exposed myself to and what I let inside of me, you know. So
I want to offer something, a book, Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown.
Here, write it down.
Send it in the group chat because my phone's on.
I need it.
Pleasure Activism. I think that, you know,
Adrienne, you said?
Adrienne Marie Brown.
somebody send that to me.
And then the other book that I want to share with you is The Body is Not an Apology by Sonia Renee Taylor.
And can you also tell us that book, what was it, The Whole Lesbian?
The Whole Lesbian Sex Book?
The Whole Lesbian Sex Book. Can you note that also?
Felice Newman.
Okay.
Yeah. So I share these books with you because I know that sometimes, you know, when you talk about things and you're like, ooh, I'm still feeling that out for myself, it doesn't feel real. And sometimes you need to sit with information to understand, like, what that means for you, you know? And so, you know, and that's how I came into awareness too. So I feel like, you know, it's easy for me to say that self-care and awareness and accountability and all of these things, that is a part of my pleasure practice, because you know what? It frees me up to feel joy in my body. Mm-hmm. It frees my mind up to think about things that, like, put me in alignment with my highest light, you know? And so, yes, that is joy-filled. That is pleasurable. You know, getting in the bath is pleasurable. You know, riding and feeling the sun on my skin is pleasurable. You know, like there are things that I surrender to and that we all surrender to. And we're like, ooh, that feels good. I mean, the weather is changing. You know, it's feeling good outside. That's pleasure. Yeah. And I think pleasure has been something that we see, and it's almost like you shouldn't have that because bad girls have pleasure. Like, you know, good girls don't do pleasure. Good girls do modesty. Good girls do legs closed. You know, you know, legs closed, knees closed, feet on the floor. You know, type of thing. And so, you know, I just think that wow, like how can we free ourselves up in ways that feel safe for us, in ways that feel boundaried and paced for us. You know, you're not going to be where someone else is. We all talked about how our lives are all so different. We're on this journey somewhere together. We're here.
And we got through a lot to get here.
Yes, but
still got a lot to go through.
Yeah, we got through a lot to get here. We went through a lot to get here, literally, and then we go through a lot to make it here. Every Monday, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's what's up. Should we do another?
Get out of my head. Can you explain what you do for your coaching?
Yeah.
Like how do you what do you coach people on?
Yeah, so most of the time people are like, I need coaching around standing in my power, time management, you know, how to navigate conflict. Okay. You know, I am, you know, now a co-director of my organization. It's a national organization that focuses on these issues where I might get death threats. How do you handle that? You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, I think that, I support people with a range of things, and the way that I do that is the first question that I ask folks is, I'm like, you know, what element in nature is attached to your trauma? And then I just build out the conversations from there.
Wait.
Can we answer that?
Can we answer
that?
I was like, hold on.
I think mine would have to be fire.
Wait, mine is
fire.
Just dark. Like just being in the dark.
Shadow?
Yeah, like. Yeah.
I don't lose words often, but what element of nature connects to my trauma?
It's connected to your trauma.
It's
like
connected
when
to
you
my
see
trauma?
that element, do you see your trauma? Do you see your frustration in it? What is that element for you?
I don't know, maybe like coldness. Just why am I always crying on air? Oh, I think coldness.
Yeah.
I hate the cold.
Yeah.
And I just associate the cold with just so much, like just lack of
Yeah.
affection and so much stuff. Oh, girl, I'm cool. I could literally. This is me. Sit tight. But yeah, I think coldness.
And when I hear you say coldness, I think about the Sister Soldier book, The Coldest Winter Ever.
And I would need the new one that just came out. I need to read part 2. But yeah, I probably read that book. Literature was an escape for me. I lived vicariously through the Ratchet and Clatchet characters in books, and not all. I mean, I read like the Letters to My Sister book too, and like just those types of stories, and all the Eric Jerome Dickies, and just all the Triple Crown Productions, like all the books, urban books, especially as a child. But I lived through them, and I lived through those experiences. And a lot of them fed into my belief that this life of freedom that other people had, whether they were criminals or druggies or whatever society named them, whatever, it fed into my fear that this is what I thought it was like being outside, and this is exactly what it's like, and that's why I'm staying my butt in school. You know what I mean? And just blocking off so much. But yeah, like just how things definitely, your internalization of your childhood definitely carries into, and then it manifests into things when you get older. Like
for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, coldness would be it for me.
Yeah. So from there, what's yours?
Oh, I said fire too, but that's just because it was the first thing that came to my mind. And I try not to like ever second guess that.
Mm-hmm.
Like just listen to my intuition. But like now I'm trying to think about why.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think it's because a lot of my trauma was like with intimate relationships with people, and I just like associate that with like passion and fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something to think about, because it's like, how can you be in relationship with that element? You know,
I can't stand a stiff, cold mother sucker. I'm
try
like,
to
get
sleep
away
in
from
complete
me.
darkness now.
Yeah.
Like leave my electronics in the kitchen.
Hers.
Someone was just
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's what I do. And so I take him, we go on a
We just got
10-week
coached,
journey.
y'all.
Not yet. We just got like the little taste of it.
Yeah, the first question.
Coaching.
Alicia said hers is water.
Amazing. Yeah. Water can create and destroy. So, yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
shall we have another question?
Question.
Is this the
This is
closing
one. No.
Well, it's
Probably should be soon.
Yeah. What would you try if you had no fear? I mean,
I don't know that this is appropriate for you.
yeah.
Right.
She is a nature.
No.
she said no.
Oh. What would I try if I had no fear?
Yeah.
What would I try if I had no fear? Ooh. You know, here's the thing. Like, I am having a challenge right now just looking fear in the eyes.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot that I'm, fearful of. And, but the things that I'm afraid of, I think, just confronting fear. As it comes up, because there's a lot of things that I see in the world, I'm like, damn, I'm afraid of that. What is that going to mean? So I think that being in a confrontational stance with fear is what builds your muscle around being brave. Because you're like, you know what, you're not going nowhere, I'm not going nowhere, we about to be here, what we about to do. And so I think that there's a way that you can get with fear, and that it can be supportive to you, but I don't know if there's any one thing that I would do outside of confronting it.
That's a good answer.
Alicia said she sent the question.
So you would confront it.
Yeah.
You would confront fear if you had no fear.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes, I would confront fear.
What did she say? There's a question.
Yeah, she texted me and said there's a question in the chat.
Ooh.
Was it from her?
I think so. She said she sent one.
Oh. She said family would put you in a box. Their optimism will harm the way you identify.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, yeah. She said, would your family's optimism harm the way that you identify? Is that?
What?
I don't think.
No.
I think she didn't send it or something.
I don't have it. I can't see it.
Maybe I'm wording it wrong. My apologies.
No, you're reading the right thing, but I don't know. Oh, wait, she wants opinions on it.
Oh,
okay, so her
scroll
statement is family
scrolling
will
down.
put you in a box. Their optimism will harm the way you identify. And she opened it up for opinions.
Yeah,
that was confusing.
I think if people tell you who you are, you don't ever really get to figure out who you are.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, it's another one?
There's an actual question that she did submit. Does your energy in... Does your energy in match your energy out? How do you identify that?
Yeah, it has to.
But in and out of what?
So does your energy on the inside match your energy on the
okay.
outside? Yeah, I'm super vulnerable. I cry a lot. I have therapy once a week. It's lit and dope. And I just try. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I'm coming here from a space of like deep vulnerability and just sharing with y'all and just meeting y'all. So, but I think that we're so possible in everything that we do and everything that we do and everything that feeds us and that we feed, that I'm like, yeah, I want to be inside of this cipher. I want to see what goes on here.
Yeah.
I want to, I want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, it doesn't matter really what age you are, What's fascinating for me right now is that I am 42 and I remember being 24. And I'm like, wow, that's something. But I don't even know what happened because I still feel 24. You know what I mean? So I just am feeling like, I don't believe that age is linear. I don't believe that wisdom is connected to age. I believe that, we just have so much to learn from each other. And, yeah, that's how I feel. I don't know. How are y'all feeling?
I definitely feel that your energy and, it's a reflection of it's a reflection of, what you want and what you're willing to put in to get to what you want. Like, that's why I feel like I get up and come, to meet with you guys every week when we record, because of that exchange. I want to learn. I see everything, everybody that's here, I see something in you that I want to be, you know what I'm saying? So I definitely feel like it's a mirror image.
Yeah, we actually all didn't really know each other
before
we started this. So it was like very vulnerable. Yeah, so I knew Nova, that was it, but we weren't like close. We had worked together. But everyone else, like, we all just like kind of came in and just are slowly like opening up with our vulnerability and sharing. But like we all have this like common bond and like common thing that we're trying to do. So it was like, I don't know, it was just all meant to be and like meshed together.
It's kind of like when they're making a song.
I think we're all in different places, but we're like all on the journey of just like
we're
self-awareness.
And it's so funny because like we're literally like all on these really transformative roads. Yeah. And we all ended up with one foot on this track. And it just like, and we very different. Got our foot.
It's like different, but it's like the same.
Kept our foot on the track. You know what I mean? Because we had some different. We've had different castmates. No. I'm just saying, as a journey, you know what I mean. So I just take it to be like divine. You know what I mean. To just have people who that stay the course and just like and are willing to keep opening up and growing and flourishing. So I just think that that's like so cool. It's like so random and like so cool.
But even hearing you say that is like almost, I wouldn't say a rarity, but you don't see it all the time, because even with me, like now that I'm thinking about myself here, like I'm very quick to be like, nah, I'm not sticking around for that. Like no, it's not. As soon as I see a little bit of sorry, you're not about to put me through nothing, I'm about to
They're like that guard goes up
like you said last episode, what
safe
you're
door
deal with, you don't want to put other people through that.
So I be like
the
I gotta
safe
cut
room
it.
Goes like I ain't about to let you in here on my little island. You about to
like it looked nice, but I don't know.
I have 2 more books. 2 more books that I actually have working.
Ooh.
So this one,
it's so pretty,
is Sweeter Voices Still. It's an LGBTQ anthology from Middle America. It's published by a local publisher called Belt Press. And it has stories of LGBTQ Midwesterners who are, Muslim, Amish, and writing anonymously because they're afraid of the retribution from their community. So, there's a story of my Aunt Betty in here. There's stories of so many folks that I think would be really profound. And they're from our region, And this is another book that I'm in. It's the Echoing Ida collection. And I was in a writing collective called Echoing Ida, named after Ida B. Wells. And so it was just about 25 writers. We got together and like within our first year, we wrote like over 100 articles because we were just like, we are so tired of people not saying the truth, about our experience and just talking at us and about us, but not with us, Yeah. And so this anthology is a collection of our writing. And so I'm really, it's like, 2020, right, is hard. But it's so amazing to have like something that is a product of so much, that you care about. Yeah. And so I just brought these to share with you because I'm really happy about them.
And then I know you said writer. So do you have? I know you have things published in here. Do you have other things? Do you? Where can we find? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so
Besides going to the link, because we know y'all lazy, y'all don't click. We know this.
The link.
Click the link in the bio.
It's there for a reason.
So if you just go to my website, blackfeminist.com, BLKFEMINST.com, you will see like highlights of everything that I do. So then you'll be able to go to my writing and see all the things and the herbalism and the coaching and all that stuff. So yeah.
She has
Do
a
you
link
allow
tree.
people to connect with you on Instagram?
Yeah, which is Black Feminist on
Okay.
Instagram.
Are
so.
you on Clubhouse?
Pretty consistent here.
I am, but I have no idea what I'm doing on Clubhouse. So I
Finicky, like you can find some. I've been in some really, really like love and light kind of places, high energy, high vibrations, and I've also stepped into some rooms. I'm like, gotta get out of here. Like let me go get the sage. I don't know what was going on.
Wow. Yeah. See, I don't know what I'm doing.
Alicia and I were in a couple of interesting rooms.
I feel like it's very at first it was kind of overwhelming for me just because it's like you're welcoming, so it's just a different way of bringing energy in, and I'm like,
when I wake up, I be seeing y'all names on the notifications. I'll be like, what are they listening to?
You know, I give everyone a chance. Y'all know me, my bleeding heart. I'll be like, let me what it say, but it's also say, and they get it. I click for like 40 seconds. That 40 seconds better be good, or I'm leaving quietly. Yeah. But I think the Clubhouse would be a good place for you. Yeah. The thing about Clubhouse, let's just crack it on open to end the show. But the thing about Clubhouse is there are a lot of authentic beings on there. And then there's a lot of representatives. There's a lot of masks on there. And there's a lot of people who have no other validation or accreditation in life other than to hopping in a room and, you know, speaking opinions. And I say opinions because I think opinions are different than truths. I can tell you my truth. It may not be your truth. You may not agree with it, but it's my truth. You know, so it's different, I think, to tell something from a standpoint of I've lived this is what I know, this is all I'm saying is that this is what I know because I did it or I've been through it. And then there are people who collect things that they've heard and maybe things that they've seen and maybe things from movies and maybe things from comic books, and then they get in there and then they present it with the posture that they know what they're talking about. And for people who come in looking, you know, it's just kind of and that's why I haven't been on there in like 2 months. I'll look and see what's going on, and if somebody's hosting a room, I try to go in and support and just listen and add if I have anything to add. But I really had to step away from it because I got some real vibes from a couple of, you know, just like different energies, and it was like, what is it about this experience? And it was like, for me, it was that interest, it was that curiosity, and then but I was constantly being shown that it wasn't authentic, and I was like, why do you keep going back if you know that what you know, if you know what you know? And so for me, I was going under the premise of these are people who know more than me. These are people who are more experienced than me. These are Reiki masters. And, you know, and I'm listening and I'm like, man, you juvenile. Like, I feel like I've evolved out of this. Like, you know, I was going there for something with the empty cup and it wasn't being filled. And it was constantly making me question, like, are you who you say you are? Do you know what you say you know? And it was like the answer kept coming back as no. So it was like, dummy, why do you keep going? And that's why I had to step away.
I think that plays into just two things. Because I don't want to give Clubhouse a bad reputation for people who may be watching and are like, oh, what's Clubhouse? But I have made a lot of good connections on Clubhouse, but I feel like it's just using discernment. And then even when you are in those spaces and someone doesn't know as much, leave. No, not if it's a negative, exchange. Yeah. But take up that space and be like, hey, I heard you say this. I'm going to add on to this with it. But I definitely think you should use Clubhouse with discernment. I've made really good connections on there. Like, the male model who was just in my music video, never met him in life, met him on Clubhouse, followed him on Instagram, boom, he's in my video. Or like this guy I keep in contact, shout out to Action, this guy I keep in contact with that lives down in Houston, never met him a day in my life, only ever seen his Instagram and his profile picture on Clubhouse, but we can get on the phone and talk. We don't do it all the time, maybe once every couple weeks, but we can get on the phone and talk for 1, 2, 3 hours about real life shit.
Yeah, I met some good people on there, but I had to quit going. That's why I say I still go in some
just
rooms,
filter through
but
it.
yeah, and it was like, you know, that was what it was. It's like I be having this much time. I ain't got time to be sifting through stuff, especially when, you know, discernment keep coming to me and ancestors keep telling me, girl,
get
why
off.
are you
Get off.
I told you, but I do like Clubhouse. I do like it, and it's some really good groups in there, especially good herbal group, and that's I'm thinking of all the herbalists that I've met in there. And do you know who Dr. Lakeisha is?
Nope.
What?
No.
We gonna talk after the show. I'm plug you with some people because they know their stuff.
Amazing.
Good, yeah.
Well, I want to ask a question before we go because I keep on looking at your sternum piece.
Oh,
and-
it's a full chest piece.
Oh, is it? Does it mean anything?
Oh yeah, it's like I feel like it is my like goddess tattoo. It is like my. I have phoenix wings here. I have a sun here. I have a womb here. This is a Labris, which is the weapon of the Queen of Amazons. It's a double-sided axe, so it has a lot of powerful goddess meaning.
You like weapons.
And so yeah,
I love it.
It's a whole thing.
I'm so intrigued.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep my eyes off him.
She's looking down her shirt. Don't.
It was 6 hours. I sat for it straight.
Whoa.
Is that the only tattoo you have?
No, just all here.
That one. Wow. 6 hours.
That's meaningful though.
Yes.
That's very powerful. I love that.
I had a couple shots. But
Well, we enjoyed you.
Yes, thank you so
Definitely
much. Very
opened
much.
my mind.
Have so many takeaways.
Yeah, for sure.
good.
For sure.
I'm glad.
It was amazing having you here. Thank everyone for joining in.
Yes.
This one was a long one, but I feel like we got really in depth with some really meaningful things. So that was like powerful. And again, we extend our gratitude. So shout out to Jasmine.
Yes. Follow her at Black Feminist, spelled like we said on our page.
We will tag her. So I can follow
She's tagged, but
Have a great night,
sure to
everyone.
follow her. See you guys until next
Until
week.
again.